And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's across the glass.
Well, John, last night, L.A. County Director of Public Health, Barbara Ferrer, held a town hall on Zoom on the post-fire impact of Palisades schools. Let's check in and see how it went.
But lingering concerns about air quality, water safety, and environmental hazards, especially in the spaces where children are spending a lot of their day. We can take the first slide, if that's okay. Brett, is there? Great. I will actually go to the next slide.
Technical difficulties, you don't say.
I have tech issues.
Does she ever give a presentation where it doesn't come apart at the seams with tech issues?
Barbara Ferrer makes $650,000 a year and doesn't know how to click a mouse on PowerPoint.
Why is it that you need an assistant to click the button?
Next slide.
Because it's the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles. As Shangy said,
the bureaucracy is real.
The communications director for the L.A. County Department of Public Health has two jobs: kick you off Twitter and click next slide on the presentation.
Did I ever tell you about the time that they tried to get Doug McIntyre to write the Super Mario Brothers movie?
I have heard that story, but please tell us again.
Okay, so Penny Marshall was the one who was doing the movie, and she needed a writer to come up with a script, and she wanted Doug McIntyre to write it. So she lives in this huge house that overlooks the Hollywood Bowl that was actually, it had the same architect as the Hollywood Bowl, and it was designed specifically to look directly into the bowl. So a beautiful home in a beautiful part of Los Angeles. And one of the things that they had her do to familiarize herself with Super Mario Brothers so she could do the movie was they sent her a Nintendo and the controllers and the games so she could play it and understand the characters and understand the concepts. But she's about as tech literate as Barbara Ferrer. So her idea of playing the video game was to put 9,000 pillows in her bed, prop herself up at the back of the bed with a box of chocolates open and her dog on her lap. And then she had an assistant who made Paul Lynde look like John Wayne at the foot of the bed, and she would just bark orders at the assistant. Make him go right. Make him go left. Make him jump. Make him grab the mushroom. And that was how she played Super Mario Brothers.
Love it.
Don't you picture Barbara Ferrer doing it the same way?
Why, yes. Yes, I do.
Yeah. Next slide.
It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is a columnist, my colleague over at the Southern California News Group, which is the LA Daily News, the OC Register, the Riverside Press Enterprise, and most importantly, Randy,
the Redlands Daily Facts.
She's also host of the Howard Jarvis Radio Show, which airs Tuesday nights on KABC and KSFO. You can find her online at SusanShelley.com and follow her on X at Susan_Shelley. Susan Shelley, welcome.
Thank you so much, John. Great to be with you.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by. So first, let's start out with the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, going up to Sacramento. And she's asking for a boatload of money because the city of L.A. is $1 billion with a B dollars in the hole. And what she's doing while she's in Sacramento is kind of interesting. It's kind of a back to the future sort of thing. Because remember, Susan, when COVID was a thing and the left basically said, we need all of the things on our wish list because of COVID. We need to defund the police. We need socialized medicine. We need raises for teachers. We need fill in the blank because of COVID. Well, now what she's doing is she's repeating that playbook, and the city is broke for a million different reasons. Most of them are related to mismanagement. And she's asking for bailout money, not just to deal with the fires, but for all of their financial problems. But whenever she's pressed on it, she says, well, you know, we had fires. and everything is going to be blamed on the fires. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a complete hoax because in December, the city administrative officer, Matt Sabo, put out a report warning of all of this, saying that the city had too much liability because people were tripping over the infrastructure that hasn't been repaired because of mismanagement, and because there were these huge multi-year raises for the unionized civilian workforce, also for police and fire, leave that aside. For the civilian workforce, huge raises, unaffordable, no money in the budget for it, and they just approved it because it's so important to take care of our people. So they took care of the people, and now they're looking at a $1 billion deficit for the next fiscal year. This was all forecast in December before the first spark hit the brush.
Ashley Zavala of KCRA News caught up with the mayor in the halls of the state capitol, and she asked her, why should residents in California who are not living in the city of Los Angeles pay for this? Do we have that sound?
Let me pull that up for you. That was yesterday when Karen Bass and Marquise Harris Dawson and Bob Blumenfeld all went up with hat in hand and said, give us some more money, give us some more money, give us some more money. Here is what Ashley Zavala asked.
State right now is dealing with a really uncertain budget situation in terms of its Medicaid funds, in terms of what federal funding looks like in the future. Tax returns in your district are delayed until October. So lawmakers are going to have to formulate a budget plan that they don't really even know how much money they're working with. So just what's your message to California taxpayers and other parts of the state who sort of see these challenges ahead for the state while you yourself have your challenges?
Right. And we are fortunate to have the state legislature and governor that we do. And we are concerned because we don't know what awaits us from Washington, D.C. But the state will have a better sense of the finances after April 15th when taxes are due. The May revise when the budget is updated based on the tax returns will give us a better idea. But that's why we're here now, because the subcommittees in the Assembly and in the Senate that decide the budget that the governor put forward are meeting right now. So we want to make sure that LA City is included in that. We've been working lockstep with the county. The county was here last week, so we wanted to make sure that our voices were heard as well, which is why we're here today.
That is quite an answer, Susan. Why should the people of Orange County pay for this? Answer, well, we have a supermajority, so we can.
That is really remarkable, but I'm not sure that that's going to work. I'm not sure that Los Angeles is going to be bailed out, because this is a structural deficit. So it's not one bailout that they need. They need this consistently. And they've already raised the sales tax in L.A. County to pay for homelessness programs, so raising the sales tax further is really not a possibility. They're looking at raising the trash fees. And Matt Sabo, the city administrative officer, is contending that homeowners are subsidized by the general fund. I don't think so. It's $75 every 2 months for trash fee pickup in the city of Los Angeles for single-family homeowners, and renters and commercial buildings have already been gouged by this new franchise system where people have exclusive rights to pick up the trash and you can't shop for a better price. So this is really concerning. It's total mismanagement. People are taxed out the yin-yang, and that is why sales tax revenue is down. Business tax revenue is down. Hotel tax revenue is down because everything in Los Angeles is more expensive and less usable, less safe, less accessible, and it's total mismanagement. So they have lower revenue, they have higher costs, and they want another bailout. When Joe Biden won the 2020 election, he did a bailout of the local governments, whereas President Trump was planning to do a bailout directly to small businesses. But the Democratic view was, no, you give the money to the governments. Well, they were just addicted to that COVID funding. And now every time you ask them about their financial problems, they say, well, the COVID funding is ending. Yeah, it's supposed to. It wasn't supposed to be a permanent subsidy, but that's what they want, a permanent bailout.
Do you think what we're dealing with here is that it never occurred to them that Kamala would lose? And they assumed that Kamala would win and there would be big, generous bailouts for all of the cities and counties and states that are broke?
That's a very good call. It's probably exactly what they expected. It's certainly what they wanted.
What do you think Bass is going to do here? Because if you just look at her political situation right now, she's in a tough spot because she's underwater in terms of her approval ratings. If the election were held today, polls say that Rick Caruso would beat her. She clearly wants a second term. She's filed to run for a second term. She's raising money for a second term. She says she wants 4 more years in office. But you look at her political allies as it stands today, the DSA bloc, the socialist bloc on the city council, they're 100% behind her. You see her at public events with Hugo Soto Martinez. You see her at public events with Ulysses Hernandez and others. She's very close to the council president, Marquise Harris Dawson. He is certainly on the left side of the political aisle. If she then decides that she's going to get rid of the ambassadors and she's going to get rid of all of these homeless programs that we know don't work, and she's going to cut into all of these worthless social programs that the city of Los Angeles spends millions of dollars on, those people are going to go nuts, and she's going to lose the block of people, the only block of people she can really count on that she has in her corner right now. If she goes in the other direction and she says, okay, well, if you look at the pie and you look at where we spend money, where we have to cut is police and fire. And you're going to try to sell that to a city that just voted for Prop 36, and you're going to go to the people of Pacific Palisades and you're going to ask them for their vote after you cut the fire department again. I can't see that working. I think the only thing she can do and politically survive is go for a tax increase. Put a tax increase on the ballot. Get the city council to vote for one, increase those trash fees, find some way to increase the revenue, because that's the only way she doesn't piss off every aspect of her coalition.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good prediction. And I believe there's a bill that was just introduced in Sacramento that would make it easier for a city council to surprise everybody by putting something on the ballot as an urgency measure with no warning at all and ram it through in one day, no advance notice. And I would fully expect that Los Angeles would do that with a tax increase and pop it onto the ballot before anybody has a chance to oppose it. But we're certainly going to watch for that. At the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, we will be watching for that, and this will not go unopposed. You will not open your ballot booklet and see something that says no opposing argument was submitted because they gave you 24 hours to do it. We'll be camped out in Norwalk to file that because somebody's got to watch to make sure that these taxes are not increased again. This is why businesses are leaving Los Angeles. This is why revenue is falling. This is a death spiral. And if we don't get better people running for office, we're not going to be able to climb out of it.
Nobody does a better job at monitoring these things than the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. You guys keep an eye on tax increases about as closely as anyone in the state of California. Given everything that you know right now about the political climate that exists today in California and in Los Angeles, do you think there's any political appetite at all for a tax increase on the ballot?
No, I really don't think there is. But Los Angeles is in a desperate situation. And just as you pointed out, the politics of having to please the hard left in the Democratic Party will drive Karen Bass toward tax increases and not toward business-friendly programs. And it's catastrophic, but the incentives are not aligned for the people of Los Angeles. They're aligned for craziness. And that's the problem.
Do you think Karen Bass survives this?
I would say no, except because the elections are sketchy and the power politics lean left so hard. I think she might. You know, we might be doomed in this city to have 4 more years. But what I really hope will happen is that the people who are organizing recalls and who oppose her so strongly will organize an independent expenditure committee to oppose her in the regular election cycle in 2026. Because if people have a place to donate to oppose her reelection and the money begins to accrue, then I think you will see candidates find a spine and run against her. But the idea of running with no backing, no financial support into this machine, into the teeth of this machine, is very daunting. And I think a lot of people, particularly people who do business in Los Angeles, a lot of people would like to see a sane, not corrupt government. And the only way that can happen is if there's money to support those candidates. So I hope that people will think a little further than the recall and think about opposing her in 2026 and getting some support for better candidates.
I've been hearing rumors that Rick Caruso may not run for mayor after all next time, that he may run for governor instead, which is a head-scratcher to me because I don't believe I've ever heard him weigh in on state issues. He's all over city issues, including the fire, including the homeless issue, including crime. We know where he stands on all of those subjects, but I have not heard him opine on Sacramento at all. I don't know if the consultants are trying to push him into that race, but it seems to me like it would be a huge mistake.
Well, I'd love to see him run for mayor again. He's certainly much more capable than the current government, and that would be good. But he's in the real estate development business, and they need a lot of permits. They need a lot of approvals from the city government at all levels. And I think it's probably a difficult situation for him at this moment to oppose the sitting government. That's my guess.
You always get in trouble if you run for an office that you really have no interest in because you're being pushed into it. I think it was in the 1950s. We had a very popular governor, Goodwin Knight, went by Goody Knight, a liberal Republican Mormon who was a lieutenant governor who became governor. And then we had a very conservative U.S. Senator, William Nolan. And they did what they called the Knight-Nolan switch, where William Nolan just decided, I want to come back home. I don't want to travel anymore. I want to be governor, even though he was only interested in federal issues. And then they took this popular governor who was only interested in state issues, and they said, you're going to run for the U.S. Senate. This was back when California was a solid ruby red Republican state. Both of them ended up losing because they ran for offices they fundamentally didn't have any interest in. And it seems like if Rick Caruso runs for governor instead of mayor, he's going to make that same mistake.
Well, that could certainly be true. You know, you have to answer a lot of questions when you're a candidate in a lot of different places, and everything's on video, so you can't get away with answers that are less than comprehensive. If he's really not interested in state issues, it would certainly be a mistake for him to run for governor.
Susan Shelley, columnist for the Southern California News Group and host of the Howard Jarvis Radio Show, which airs Tuesday nights on KABC and KSFO in the Bay Area. You can follow Susan on X at Susan_Shelley. Susan Shelley, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you, John.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, now that we've hit the halfway point of today's show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you happen to get your podcasts. Maybe you happen to get them on Apple Podcasts.
Absolutely.
Maybe you happen to get them on Spotify. Maybe you happen to get them on iHeartRadio. Anywhere you search for podcasts, search for The John Phillips Show. And then you can go back and listen to every single episode. Listen to the beginning of the Shang scandal. Listen to the latest update on the Shang scandal involving who exactly?
24-year-old Hermelindo Ramos.
What a name.
Ramos. I feel like it's not the last we're going to hear from him.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And starting on April 1, we're going live in the Bay Area.
Next Tuesday, we are doing a live simulcast every single day from noon to 3. We're going to be airing from noon to 3 live on 790 KABC in Los Angeles and 810 KSFO in the Bay Area. We'll be taking phone calls from Southern California and Northern California at the same time every day. We are so excited to finally be doing it live in both markets. So stick with us and see you every single day, noon to 3, The John Phillips Show, live and statewide, starting next Tuesday.
The Fix California Hour continues in moments. We're going to reopen that California Crime Blotter. And Randy, it's time to open up the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And this edition takes us to Mid-City,
where a homeowner has had their house broken into 3 times in the span of a year.
That's a lot.
Even with every security enhancement you could possibly imagine, they keep coming back for more. For more on this, Here is NBC4 in Los Angeles.
Tonight, frustration and fear for a couple in Mid-City. Despite adding more and more security, their home was hit by burglars for the third time in just over a year. For the first time, and only on NBC4, they're sharing.
Is it the same crew every single time, or are there that many crews going around that are breaking into the same guy's house?
If you keep upgrading your security system and you keep getting robbed, what's left? Are you supposed to build a moat with alligators?
That might be next.
For the first time, and only on NBC4, they're sharing their story and their surveillance video with NBC4's Robert Kovacic.
On this magnolia tree-lined street in the Mid-City neighborhood of Pickfair Village, one couple has had enough.
I just want to keep my wife and dog safe, and I don't want us watching camera feeds all day long because it's insane.
It's part of the life of Southern California. If you've got a security system, you're checking it constantly.
I love the fact that this guy's living his life like he's an overnight cashier at a 7-Eleven on the Hagenberger.
Camera feeds like this one showing an attempted break-in at the home of Dan Sutton and Linda Wang. It's not
no relation.
Wait a minute, that's not a long-lost relative?
No, couldn't be. My name is fake.
It's not the first, it's not the second, but the third since January of last year.
So it's a little frightening.
Dan and Linda have reinforced security in and around their home, even fenced the property. But that didn't stop would-be burglars just days ago.
That's when you're going to need the fence with the spikes.
Do you have to booby-trap your house like it's Home Alone?
Apparently that's the only way.
On Tuesday, I was at work, and around 5:29, I was in a meeting, and all of a sudden I saw my camera alert went off.
Listen as Linda spoke directly to them from her security camera.
I'm calling the police. Get out.
Well, that's going to be a drop.
I'm calling the police. Get out.
That sounds like a woman who's at her wit's end.
Let me save that real quick. I'm calling police. Get out. Available as an MP3.
I'm calling the police. Get out.
Maybe it was Ramos in there.
I'm calling the police. Get out.
They didn't even flinch. They, proceeded to the French doors, try to open it, and also the kitchen. So we had these security screens all around our property and windows, so they weren't able to get in.
Maybe that's what was going on here. They have invested in so much security equipment that it's almost like a challenge to the burglars. If you can get into this house, then you're really good at it.
Imagine, though, when these people go to sell the home and they see that there are like 15 different overlapping security systems that they have. What does that tell you about the neighborhood?
Do you have to disclose to a realtor that your home has been broken into 3 times in the span of a year?
No, I think you only have to disclose if someone dropped dead in there.
This time, unlike the first 2 break-ins, the masked intruders were not able to enter the home and took off.
See? All those security upgrades were worth it, except they still don't feel safe. It didn't stop them from trying.
The LAPD arrived within 6 minutes, guns ready. They knew the house. They knew the drill.
They've been there before, and they've been there before.
6 minutes for LAPD is not bad.
I saw the car, but I didn't get it.
Maybe after the second burglary, they gave them the real number. Because if you call 911, it ain't going to take no 6 minutes.
No, you got to press 1 for English and then wait on hold forever.
I saw the car, but I didn't get a license plate on my bus.
After the first time last year, LAPD told us, have you heard of flock safety? Essentially, it's a surveillance camera in neighborhoods where they capture only license plates.
You can really tell that this is a double income, no kids family because they have bought everything you could imagine to keep their house safer. They've got the fancy security screens. They've got the flock cameras, which are supposed to be for like freeways on their property.
At what point do you say maybe we should just move to a different neighborhood?
Well, just wait for the end of the story.
And they're connected with law enforcement.
Unfortunately, the license plate belonging to this trio was on a stolen car.
You don't say.
Let me guess. It was a Kia.
It's the one problem with all of the license plate readers and flock cameras. What do you do when the car is stolen?
Not much.
Dan and Linda say police seem as frustrated by the frequency as they are.
This last time, I think they said, think about moving.
That's the advice from the cops in that particular neighborhood.
Well, they know there's not much they can do.
No.
They got there in 6 minutes and they still couldn't do anything.
And now we have a DA who will actually prosecute people, but we have a system that doesn't want to keep people in jail.
And that's exactly what they probably will do. Move 3 times, and they're out.
This is why the city of Los Angeles is in a massive budget deficit, because that couple were about to lose their tax income from.
And you can tell if they're homeowners in mid-city, two incomes, no kids.
We call them dinks.
They're making a pretty penny. These aren't the kinds of people you want to chase away. You want these people living in your neighborhood.
They can sell that place for a mint and buy probably an acre in Riverside County.
I bet you that's what they're going to do.
In Mid-City, I'm Robert Kovasik, NBC4 News.
There you go. A home struck by burglars 3 times in the span of the year, and they're done.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Penny writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and says, I had a deposit on an apartment. When I went to see it, I noticed a front window was broken, and the neighbor downstairs came out and was watching us. When I went to sign the papers, one of them said, I'd be responsible to fix the broken windows. It was the weirdest thing I ever seen, so I got my deposit back.
I do not blame you. And Randy, it's time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And this edition takes us to a restaurant with a promotion of sorts that's catching a lot of eyes.
In North Beach in San Francisco, a taqueria is trying to figure out who broke in and stole their ATM. And they've realized the police, it's difficult to get any leads on something like this, so they're trying out a new idea. They're offering free food for a month to anyone that has information on who stole the ATM.
You drop a dime, you pay nothing for tacos.
For more, here's KPIX in the Bay Area.
In San Francisco, the owner of Taqueria Zorro is offering free lunch for a month to anyone who helps find a group of burglars. Kevin Coe talked to the business owner, who says this move is essentially a last resort.
That seems to be a common theme with these crime blotter stories.
You know, there are some places that believe that if you have an ATM, then people can get cash and pay you in cash. You don't have to pay all those credit card fees, and you might make money in the end. Well, turns out having an ATM in your store is a gigantic liability.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have one of those babies.
Tariq Cassis noticed something while watching surveillance footage of his restaurant, Taqueria Zorro, being broken into.
They're calm. They've done this before.
Video shows masked, armed burglars ripping out a bolted-down ATM at the front of the store. They load up a white Honda Odyssey, giving a clear shot of its license plate. And right when it looks like they're about to leave, one suspect speaks up.
He was like, no, go back. They're not just randomly hitting these places. They're studying them. They're hitting them.
They know where. They cased the joint before. They had lunch there that afternoon.
How do they not catch these people? If their face is on camera, there's such a thing as facial recognition. You have their voice. You know what they sound like. You have their license plate. You have the physical description.
Well, they're masked, so the physical description and the camera is useless. And you have the license plate reader. Chances are that Honda Odyssey was stolen.
Maybe it's time right now to go back to the way it was pre-Barbara Ferrer and make it illegal to wear a mask in public.
Next slide.
They have standard operating procedures. It's a business for them. They know what they're doing. They're clearing rooms. You know, they're like making sure there's no one down there. I mean, they're like SWAT of stealing.
That's a way to describe it.
2 safes, 1 ATM, adding up to about $10,000 in losses.
Why is $10,000 sitting in a taqueria?
At a certain point, and I'm not blaming the victim here, but at a certain point, if you know you're in a bad neighborhood or you know that the bad guys can do whatever they want without fear of being arrested and prosecuted, at what point do you just decide you're not going to keep large amounts of cash in your shop?
That's just a safe is not safe. That's the one thing you learn from this show. It's that a safe is not safe. Ask Karen Bass.
And neither are Kias.
Repairs to the taqueria are expected to cost about $25,000. Insurance.
This place better have the best tacos in the world.
How many tacos do you have to sell to make up $25,000?
Insurance won't cover any of it.
Of course.
And even if it did, you can't file a claim because then you'll get dropped.
Insurance won't cover any of it because, well,
I won't even call insurance.
Tarek says he won't even file a claim because he worries his insurer will cancel his coverage.
Of course. At this point, we're only having insurance as a formality. If we actually use it, we lose it.
I'll tell you, they must be making out like bandits because we all pay through the nose for it. None of us can use it. And you're right. The only reason we even have it at this point is if something catastrophic happens or if the bank requires us to have it due to our loan.
Getting insurance is hard, so they will drop you. So, and then unless it's like catastrophic, it's not worth it. If I need a certificate of insurance for my catering events, I won't be able to step foot onto venues.
Yeah, it's all formality. He needs insurance because they say he needs insurance, but the insurance is just a payment to nothing because you can't actually use it.
And it's not just like it for people in the bad areas. It's like that for everyone due to fires and everything else that we deal with.
Well, this is North Beach. North Beach isn't a bad area. I mean, there's way too many people smoking pot in the park there, but this is where all the good Italian restaurants are.
That's where I saw Willie Brown the last time I was there.
Catering makes up most of the taqueria's business, which is why staff are here 23 hours a day. Unfortunately,
except for that 1 hour where everyone broke in.
Yeah, that was the witching hour.
Unfortunately, the thieves showed up in that 1 hour window that they weren't. Tarek says it added insult to injury, seeing potential witnesses do nothing to help.
That's what I'm saying. People were walking by, biking, jogging, and no one said anything. And you don't have to confront them. I'm not asking anybody to put themselves in harm's way. But, you just, go next block over and call the cops.
That's also a theme that we've seen repeated over and over and over again, where witnesses to these crimes have just given up, too. Everyone is just defeated and is just given up.
I got a busy day. I don't got 5 minutes to call the police. They probably won't come anyway.
The police station is 1 block away. They could have gone and rang the doorbell at the police station.
Now, he's hoping a little incentive will help and is offering his own reward. Free lunch for a month for anyone who can identify the suspects.
That's a lot of tacos.
Maybe the suspects will turn themselves in and demand the chimichangas.
Now, the business owner also says that he is displeased with city leadership, but he is hopeful that San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie will step up to reduce crime.
There you go. The taqueria offering free tacos for a month if you know who broke in and stole the ATM.
I wonder if it's an all-cash business, and that's why they have the ATM there.
Has to be.
And that's why they have safes there. Because at this point, unless you're all cash, what's the point of having an ATM there that makes you a target for thieves?
Well, and the thieves can put 2 and 2 together. If you have an ATM, that means there's going to be cash outside of just the ATM in your business. That's why they didn't just steal the ATM, they stole 2 safes. There's got to be some reason none of that money's in a bank.
I understand why businesses want to go to all cash because the credit card companies charge you a fee if you accept those credit cards in your establishment, and no one wants to pay that. And I guess if you want to hide the money from the IRS, you don't want to turn your books in as they are legitimately because you want to avoid paying taxes. I guess there's that element to it. But at a certain point, how many times do you want to replace the front door? How many times do you want to replace the glass? Because they'll break all of that to get in to steal the ATM.
How many transactions where you're paying a fraction of a penny to American Express does it take to add up to the $25,000 to fix the door?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. At one point in time, I guess it did. Now it doesn't, so it's time to get with the program.
If you want free tacos, you know who to call.
There was an episode of The Late Show with David Letterman when he was doing the show from L.A. for a week, where he went to, I think it was a Taco Bell, and he was in a convertible, and he went through the drive-thru, and he told them that he wanted to buy as many tacos as it would take to fill up the car.
That's great.
Maybe Dave will drop a dime and bring a convertible for lunch. How many tacos do you want, Dave? Oh, just fill me up.
Is there a limit to how many tacos you can get if you know who stole the ATM?
That I don't know.